Welcome, Sonia. This is OutRight TV. OutRight TV is a video podcast series bringing to light stories of LGBTIQ people and allies across the globe as they face this pandemic together. I'm Kate Martin, OutRight's communications intern. In today's episode, I am talking to Sonia Cotton, who is currently in New York. Welcome, Sonia.
Thanks.
Before we begin, do you mind describing a little bit about yourself and sharing what work you do for OutRight?
Sure. Well, I am a hybrid of identities because I grew up in South Africa and I spent the last few years of my life in and out of China. And now I am at OutRight in their UN team. I'm interning there. And yeah.
What's that like being in New York, away from the places you've called home for the past couple of years?
It's quite interesting. I think that because I've moved around so much over the years, my concept of what is home is very flexible. But I do feel pretty bad that I'm not kind of weathering this crisis with people in my community. The restrictions are a lot more draconian in Cape Town at the moment and in South Africa. You aren't allowed to walk your dogs. You aren't allowed to buy alcohol or cigarettes. There are all these cases of people being kind of involuntarily confined, or else homeless people being like transported to these, third destinations where they are not really looked after so well, according to the reports I've read.
Mm-hmm. So what's that like being away from them in New York? Do you wish you were there?
Sorry?
Do you wish you were there?
I'm pretty glad I'm in New York at the moment. Just because I don't know, it's kind of like I kind of appreciate the slightly more limited scope to take breathers, whereas in Cape Town, I'd be totally confined into that space. I do worry about my family, and I worry about my friends, and I mostly worry about the people who are kind of on the streets or who are not going to be able to pay their rent. I think people are doing really good work, and I kind of wish I was there to do work with them. So I feel a little bit like I feel some guilt for being so far removed from a lot of activism that's happening on the streets. Or in the homes, not the streets.
Right. What kind of work are they doing?
So for the first time in my living memory, there are these kinds of collaborations between more affluent suburbs and more low-income suburbs, where people are helping each other get resources, because there's only a tiny minority in South Africa kind of lives what in America seems to be like a comfortable middle class lifestyle, and majority of the country is just probably way below the poverty line. So that's really beautiful. A lot of people live without running water. So there's moves to get hand sanitizer or to kind of transport already soapy water to these areas. And it's just very nice, like pairing up suburbs, getting them to do stuff together.
Yeah. How is your day-to-day in New York? How's it been adjusting to those changes?
I think it's been okay for me, to be honest, just because I think I'm very flexible, so it just feels like, okay, now there's now the rules have changed and we're no longer allowed to go out, and it feels sort of similar to what I've been doing over the past few years, which is every now and then just changing kind of life rules. Like, okay, now I live in China, and now I have to operate under these kind of rules and regulations. So I think that aspect makes it a bit easier. It is a big bummer that I don't get to experience New York. I have heard amazing things about this time of year in New York.
How long have your plans changed for leaving New York now because of COVID?
I'm probably going to stay here indefinitely because I doubt I'll be going back to South Africa while this is happening. And I would also worry about the danger I represented, just because I think my risk of it, of already being a asymptomatic carrier, is quite high. So yeah, it's indefinitely postponed.
Mm-hmm. And what's it like being in an apartment with people that you kind of just met a few weeks ago or months ago?
So my roommates are the sweetest people in the world, and I'm glad it's going on the internet so that there is a public documentation for my love for them.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, they're both really, really lovely and have made me feel very homely, and have made me feel like I'm, with family. And there's a little cat here who is the delight of my eye. And yeah, it's so far it's I feel lucky. I feel sorry for people who are doing this without any kind of contact and are just in their apartment.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned a cat and good roommates. What are some other things that you've done to keep busy and not lose your mind during this time?
Oh, well, I can show you my flower.
You are now a grandmother, is that right? That's what you said in our staff meeting?
Yes, that my daughter had a child, and there's more buds coming up, so so beautiful, so beautiful. Definitely not from my side.
Have you seen anything kind of uplifting or inspiring that you'd like to share kind of in the midst of all this craziness?
Well, I do think it's really sweet, the amount of mutual aid groups that have sprung up, and the kind of the clapping that goes on, I think at 7 p.m. In Manhattan. I've seen videos of that. That's quite sweet. I think there's a lot of kind of checking in with each other, which is kind of affirming, a lot of like people realizing that we're in this together, which is beautiful. Yeah, just kind of strengthening connections with people and just being like, are you okay? Are you okay? And it's encouraging people to be a more loving version of themselves, I think.
Yeah. So you've spent a lot of time in South Africa and China, and now you're here working for OutRight. Do you feel lucky that this is that you're working for a global organization during this time?
Oh yes, OutRight is just the most. It has just the most amazing people, and I honestly cannot think of a better group of people to be sharing a pandemic with. And it's also been really cool to be able to see some of the research they're doing globally and get this kind of privileged insight into what it's like for LGBTQ people around the world. So in terms of just access to how this is being experienced by people, it's giving me a lot of information. I live for our staff meetings and the check-ins.
Has your future plans changed at all because of this?
Yeah, they have changed quite a lot. I'm kind of like going back to the drawing board and rethinking things, rethinking even the kind of research that I think is safe for me to be doing, or at least realistic for me to be doing. I had this idea for a PhD, which is so exciting and just so like so much field work in Southern Africa and all this stuff. And now I'm reading it and I feel like, oh my God, this is just so frightening. Like this is probably not possible in a world where people are afraid of each other because we all pose the threat of giving each other and communities and terrible diseases. So I'm really thinking about what I'm interested in and like what I could do around the space I'm in.
Wow. What kind of work were you thinking of?
Oh wow! So my PhD proposal is the most. It's just like it's wild. It's basically like needs like a 3-part trilogy to kind of, capture the nuances, because it was just like trying to stick together everything I'd ever done into this like overly ambitious project, which would end capitalism and change Southern African labor laws forever, and also bring in my China interests, and covertly be a way for me to kind of keep practicing and keep learning language, which is kind of the main thing I like to do in life.
Right.
So yeah, it was all about legal pluralism and kind of human rights, and what happens in a globalized society, when a globalized world, when certain when certain countries allow for different legal systems to have equal legal status, because that's just like a very sexy area for me. I think it's not so well understood.
Wow, that is a thesis that I wish I could read. Do you have anything else that you feel like sharing today?
I guess I have kind of a lot of thoughts about everything and what I hope will happen when this is over, and I think just hoping that things will never be the way they were before, but they'll be significantly better. So yeah, just kind of realizing that I'm able to enjoy this in a very kind of safe environment, and not other people aren't so lucky. But also feeling very strongly that business as usual was never good for most people, and really hoping this will be an opportunity to realign the way things get done in the world. So this is my COVID dream.
I like that. I think that that's something everyone's realizing right now, is life as normal is hopefully not what we go back to, that it's kind of this new world with bigger perspectives, I think.
Yes.
To end on maybe a high note, what's something that you either miss and are looking forward to going back to when things do resume, or something that might be new that you're looking forward to?
Something that I miss. So actually, I think that self-isolating is a little bit like stopping drugs or alcohol, in that your resistance gets a lot smaller. So now I feel like my social resistance is a lot smaller, and I don't really want to be around lots of people now, because I feel like it would be so overwhelming. So just I look forward to just tentatively exploring little interactions with more people, just in like small safe groups. This is my modest dream, with distance maintained. I also miss nature, and there's so much of this country that I would love to see. So I have this fantasy of just seeing it and going on some sort of trip, or going camping or something, and just seeing mountains and rivers.
Oh, I really hope that you get to do all of that when this ends.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Sonia, for speaking with me today. This was for OutRight TV, a podcast and video series from OutRight. I'm Kate, and I spoke to Sonia Cotton. And my colleagues and I will be back soon with more stories.